Kangaroos, aren't kangaroos hip? The kangaroos bounce like this, and the mothers put the babies in the pocket, and they bounce like this. And they have these wild plants there. As a matter of fact, many, many decades ago, I went to a conference with one of the bush people, their medicine man. And 6 hours, this man only said 2 words I'd never noticed before, and that was tea tree oil. Wasn't that important to him. And all of the other herbal medicines that they use to reverse all these diseases. And one of the things that that medicine man said is, by the way, in the middle of every cell in your body, you have infinite wisdom. So now we're going to give you another thing that may be surprising to you, that through this process, from the time you were at blue-green algae and then a trilobite, and the land came up, and the very first plant that grew on the land was what? Does anyone know?
Fern?
Grass. So the very first plant that grew on land was grass. So if you look at a redwood tree in California that's 200 feet large, and the bark or the stump is from you to me, it was originally a grass. Isn't that amazing? And then this weird thing happened. As the human body evolved and cells started to develop, and we started to become who we are, in the middle of the cell you had something called mitochondria. That's a parasite that hijacked the body. It has nothing at all to do with human evolution. This is an alien or a foreign life form your body became a host to, that literally took over every one of your 100 trillion cells and became the energy source and the brains of your cell. Isn't that amazing? And I actually believe, quite simply, that mitochondria is the only reason that our species survived. Because we have been on a march forward to eradicate our species from the beginning of human civilization. Now, before civilization, we were pretty civil. Once we became civilized, then we became totally outrageously nuts. That's when we started to have boundaries and borders and fences around our farms, and then we got armies together to fight one another, and we lived in different neighborhoods, and we became prejudiced, and we became hateful, and all of this. Then we became civil, I guess, right? If that's what's called civil, I don't have a belief in civil. But the truth of the matter is, this mitochondria made us survive because it was much smarter than the human cell. It was the energy source in the brains of the cell. So let's go back now and relate to what I just said. Mitochondria activity is produced this way. So how is it produced? The conductivity of the electric of the heart literally stimulates, just like a battery and a flashlight, the brains of the cell, the energy source of the cell, so that your entire body works in what? The electrical circuitry, the same way that this entire hotel works with electrical circuitry. Somewhere in this hotel, if I go over to the wall, there's one button I can switch down and all the lights would go off here. Isn't that amazing? That's how important mitochondria is. So we want to respect that mitochondria. We want to say, wow, let's protect them. Even though it's not part of the human process, it's much smarter than we were. So it's like the king of the human body. And so we've been treating at Hippocrates for about the last 30 years the mitochondrial human being, the electrical human being, much more than we are the biological human being. And the heart's the epicenter of the thoughts patterns of the body. And so when we say people have to heal their head before they heal their body, we're not saying because it's some new age philosophy. We're saying it's because it's current understanding in mainstream science. There's a group out of California called HeartMath that pretty much gave us a map of this going back 30, 40 years ago. And they started to say, you know, when you start to look at the rhythm and the mathematics of the heart and the way that it interrelates with everything else in the body, it is potentially what allows us to live, survive, breathe, and allows not only our reptilian brain to function, the most primal brain in our body, most primal part of our brain to function, which is, by the way, fight and flight, reproduction, respiration, things that we do without even thinking. Most important, it goes right up through the limbic brain, and the limbic brain gave us really great things like empathy and compassion and emotions. And that showed up about 150 million years ago. And now, the greatest brain you have, the conscious brain that very, very, very few people live in, and if we're lucky, occasionally we go up there and sadly fall out of there quick. And that's called what? The neocortex. And so people like Mandela or Mahatma Gandhi, or Mother Teresa, or Martin King. These people live mostly in the neocortex. Women provide most of their life in the limbic brain. They're more empathetic, they're more compassionate naturally and maternally than I could be. Men aren't prone to be. We're more reptilian. So you get me in a car as cool and calm as I am, and somebody cuts me off and I immediately become a reptile. I pull down the window and I'm giving all kinds of signs, and I will show you the signs here. I'm using my New York dialogue at that point. A lot of words that sound like fun, but they're not really the word fun. Our remarkable anatomy rhythmically works in a constant symbiosis. What is that? Have you ever listened? How many of you love classical music here? One of my great loves of music. I love all kinds of music. I'm a jazz player, a rock player, I do all of that stuff. But at the same point, I just love Mozart. My two favorite are Handel, Haydn. You listen to those guys and say, wow. And one of my friends who's a little arrogant, he's sort of a student of classical music. Oh, he said, you like Haydn? Well, you know, Haydn was rich. I said, that's he's happy. That's why I like it. You have to suffer to make good music? I'm not into that stuff. I mean, that's a Catholic thing. I know, I was brought up that way. You don't have to suffer to be happy. And when you look at the rhythmic way that the symbiosis of the body, it's a constant push and pull. And we're not only interested in the heart pumping, but what is the message that the electric is getting back from the organ systems of the body? So, how many of you have ever been shocked? You know exactly what I mean if I talk about this. You can actually feel your heart stop. Remember the term, it was an old Irish term my grandmother taught me. My heart's in my throat. Remember that? Your mouth, boy, you're went right to the mouth in your family. We only got it to the throat. I feel like, and it's actually what happens. That when that message comes back from the organ systems of the body, it stops in the heart and it blocks. And that symbiosis, that rhythm, like the waves going back and forth, stop. And boy, it can really impair it. When observing our multiple cells, stem cells, which are these beautiful cells that keep pumping out by the millions a second, trying to create new what? Body parts. And the red blood cells, which I look at your body, matter of fact, you don't know this, but you're exposing the largest organ in your body to me tonight. Which is the largest organ in your body? Your skin. So that's it. And then the immunity, which is like shocking and brilliant. If you don't believe in God, study immunity, I say. Once you study immunity, you know, this system that comes together that's the most remarkable system ever created on Earth. Eosinophils, basophils, neutrocytes, grandocytes, leukocytes, that literally are there to protect you. And each one of these cells protect you from different things. Some from bacteria, some from viruses, mold, yeast, fungus, some from yourself. And now remember, on top of that is something that hijacked your body that's not even part of the human system, called the mitochondria, that's more important than all of this together. And all of this works with what? The big E word, electric. So the real messaging, the real language, the real sophistication going on in the body is something that we miss in biological science. Because we're not looking at the electrical frequency. Just like the difference between the old telephones where you had to wind them up, that's what we're doing now in biology. It's like the old phones we're winding up and hello, and there's an operator somewhere here in Dublin answering, versus cell phones. You follow? Our bodies are like cell phones, they're not like old wind-up phones. And this is where we're failing you in science. Let's go back again. Sedentary lifestyles, poor food choices, and unresolved emotionals dramatically impact the anatomical systems that exist to promote health and life. How about if you're just sitting all day long? There were two things I hated before I started to be into health. Food that tasted good and was healthy, and exercise. I was committed against exercise, and I was committed against anything that had anything to do with health. There were two things I was absolutely sure of. So when I would watch people play sports, I used to actually think something was seriously wrong with their emotional state. Why would they ever go out in the middle of the cold weather, kicking a ball around, screaming like a bunch of chimpanzees? And I'd say, well, who would ever do that? Do you think their circulation and their electrical system would be a little bit more functional than mine when I was on the couch taking tokes out of a marijuana cigarette? Watching more television and eating whole bags of potato chips, the family size? Or maybe not. Maybe you think watching football on TV, it's like a joke to me. Let's go to the sports bar, and all these fat guys go to the sports bar. What's a sports bar have to do with sports? I don't know, other than drinking more beer and getting fat. So the reality is, sedentary lifestyles shut off your electric. Just like how many of you have ever been in a hotel room where you have to put your card in before the electric goes in? When you pull the card out, what happens? Most of you pulled your card out many years ago, decades ago. How about poor food choices? We go back again. You're putting Elmer's glue inside of your veins, the river that's going on. And worse than Elmer's glue. How about sugar? How many of you ever seen this ungodly thing that people think is sweet called cotton candy? Whenever you have fairs here, they do cotton. That's where they actually highly heat sugar. And it starts to spin in a circle. And you actually make this ungodly thing that's usually purple or green or yellow or orange or red, and you eat that stuff. Well, guess what? You don't have to have one of those whippers at the fair, because your body does the same exact thing, coagulate sugar. And also, along with Elmer's glue that you're drinking in the form of milk and cheese and whipped cream and ice cream and yogurt, including the Greek variety, that's the latest one, and kefir, and all this so-called organic dairy. There's no such thing as organic dairy. There's dead glue that you pay more for, called organic dead glue. And then there's just regular dead glue. If you want to kill yourself, save money, leave the money behind. If you're going to die, if you're on your march to death, go ahead and leave your family the damn money. At least they can bury you with the money. But then on top of that, unresolved emotions. Have you ever noticed if I go, ha! What do you stop doing? You stop breathing. And do you think if you stop breathing, you may impair the symbiotic relationship between electric and functionality and circulatory of the blood? You think that may have something, what just you experienced, may have something to do with it? I think it has everything to do with it. Because I know one thing, if I get stressed, I stop breathing. If I stop breathing, I start dying. How many of you know that? The quickest way to kill yourself, other than jump off the bridge or shoot yourself, is to stop breathing. Because in 7 minutes after you stop breathing, I promise you, you will be declared dead. And if you are, like most people, stressed all of the time, matter of fact, the Irish have been so stressed over the years, some of you speak like this, ooh, ooh, ooh. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah, the Irish actually breathe in a lot more than others. Swedes do a lot of that too. Very oppressed and quiet people who don't really say a lot, until they get a couple of drinks. I don't know what they say an awful lot. They never stop at that. But sucking in, pulling in, because again, if things are not flowing, if you don't have a rhythmic symbiosis between electric in the body and the emotions, you have all of these problems. I wish cardiologists knew some of this stuff. Exercise is essential in the quest to support and maintain the heart and other bodily systems. One of the foremost medicines to prevent and reverse cardio concern is a consistent movement with intent. Now, once I realized exercise wasn't exercise, it was consistent movement with intent, I liked to do it. When it was called exercise, I didn't like it. How many of you know that? Now, why shouldn't you consistently, with intent, be doing something so you progress? And that's how the body is built. As a matter of fact, you're the first generations in a long, long, long history of people who always exercise, the last 4 or 5 generations, that chose to sit on a couch, eating potato chips, of course the organic variety, washing it down with organic sodas, and watching football players in some faraway nation, because your country seemingly never gets into those games, and you scream,
not true.
oh, see, I knew I'd get one back. So we have some blood moving here. You follow what I'm saying? So you're screaming and yelling for guys you can't even say their damn name. Oh, it's Maholi Shahabali from the University of Dublin. You're so excited about him. Wouldn't you like a body that looked like these bodies here? Wouldn't it be nice you come home, your neighbor said, oh, look at little fat Charlie there. And they look out and all at once you look like that. No longer fat Charlie. And you know who's going to like you better than your neighbor and you? Your heart and your brain. And how many of you know when you get muscles, your memory loss is almost eradicated? Because when you have muscles, you create hormones, and when you have hormones, the memory doesn't like to go south. And how many of you know losing weight, the number one way to lose weight is weightlifting, not aerobic exercise? First thing they say is do aerobic. Aerobic exercise is incredibly important, but 82% of muscle comes from fat. So the best thing to do for somebody who is fat like me, and boy, I was fat, is to get you in the gym lifting weight, because I can rapidly convert muscle into fat into muscle. You give me a chubby person in 6 months, they're going to look amazing. You give me a skinny person, it will take 3.5 years to do the same thing. Because you have to build a little bit of fat and rip it. Build a little fat and rip it. So it's good to be chubby. That's the message in this section. Now this guy is interesting. I love this guy. You know, Ann and I have known him at a distance for years. He was a runner, an avid runner going back 60 years ago. And runners look like hell. How many of you notice that? They always look like they're half dead, most of them. They're skinny, they're gaunt, they're looking like this, and they always say, oh, I'm healthy. They're like, you're healthy? You look like that, you're not healthy. And he was running, and all of his medical doctor friends, because he was a doctor, said, you're crazy, you're sick, you're weak, you know, something's wrong with this. So he left medicine and became the world's #1 researcher on exercise and the importance exercise has on health. And what's his name? Dr. Kenneth Cooper. So if you really want to study exercise and what we've learned in over 60 years in really, really great research and how important it is for all of the electric we spoke about and heart and circulation, you get it from him. We do not stop exercising because we grow old. We grow old because we stop exercising. The good news is when Anna and I are at home and we go to the gym there, which we don't stop doing, by the way. We go to the gym all of the time when we travel. In fact, if Bernadette met me at the airport and said, there's no gym anywhere you can't go, that would be the last time I'd come to speak. So the prerequisite,